Welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. So, already this year, we're seeing a lot of chaos in America with the quote unquote terror attack in New Orleans, the Cybertruck explosion, and a lot of other events that you're not even seeing in the mainstream media. But if you're looking on the right places, you see that there's already these plans that seem to be unveiling themselves. Now, I've been covering the border for years and warning about the fact that we've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of military-aged men streaming across the border. A lot of them Chinese nationals, a lot of them from massive gang networks in South America. And you have to ask yourself, what's coming, right? We have the inauguration coming up soon. We have Trump's first year approaching in the White House, which represents a significant threat to the criminal networks that are operating in our country, within our government. And one thing is for certain, though, is that across all these different criminal cabals, they have one shared goal, which is the collapse of America. And so joining us today is Steve Slepcevic, who is a disaster response expert. He's got a company, SRP, that has been doing disaster response for decades. This guy knows a lot about what happens in disaster zones. He has a lot of feelers and intel coming in to see what's coming next. He also does executive protection. He does security for very high value events or VIP individuals. He understands the realm of disasters, how to prepare for them, what are the signs that more are coming. And so we're going to be talking about just his assessment of the landscape in America currently, what he's concerned about happening, and why he tells me that his prediction is absolute chaos in America. So folks, please enjoy the interview. I know that you do one of your other companies, so actually I'll pull up your websites really quickly here. So SRP24, this is your disaster response, strategic response partners right here. But you also have Saber Defense, right? So saberteam.com. This is, you do private security, whether it's an event or whether it's a high profile person that needs private security. So I imagine that between these two different companies that you're interacting with people that see with a bird's eye view that most of us don't have access to in terms of threat awareness, et cetera. What's the sense that you're gathering, yourself or your resources, the information coming in? Do you sense that there is a kind of a looming concern over what's coming around the corner in America? I mean, or is there a sense of people thinking, oh well, Trump's getting back in, we're going to be smoothing things out, and they're not as worried? I mean, what's your finger on the pulse telling you?
It's going to be absolute chaos. The globalists, 40, 50 years, have been planning to create totalitarian, to actually have a complete control over the system. And it's coming from a hierarchy, which is like the World Health Organization, the United Nations. These guys are unelected bureaucrats that tell countries what to do. Many countries are captured. So if you think that the disruption that Trump's bringing into the White House and into America to put America first, that goes completely against the grain they've been planning for so long. The goal was to weaken America so we would just assimilate into that and give up complete controls, which is exactly what would have happened if we hadn't won this election. But this country was founded on those that were about the resistance. They weren't politicians. They were all felons. I mean, they were all, it was all part of how this whole system was set up. We're founded on people that went against government. Our founding principles were all about that. But if you think that RFK is going to step in there, HHS completely expose the criminal organizations from big pharma, the politicians that have been in bed with these different pharmaceutical companies that have enriched themselves. We talk about the corruption in Ukraine and some of these other countries. Man, the corruption in America is just something we've never experienced. And we've been led to believe that it's not possible in our country. The only difference is we've just learned how to hide it well. And so I feel these last 4 years, leaving the borders open, with 1,000 of my special operators, with 1,000 of my guys, I could bring LA County to its knees instantly. I could overwhelm the police department. If that's the space I operated from, you could shut that whole system down instantly, right? And so if I can think it, don't you think that the enemy's already thought and war gamed this thing out? And the amount of countries that we've gone in and caused absolute devastation and collapse using the industrial war complex, you don't think that there's fathers out there that lost their sons, their daughters, their wives, their cousins, that don't hate America? And as soon as that opportunity showed itself that, oh, you know, you can just get in, drop all your documentation, you're not in the system, we'll let you know when. This is how you take America, is you walk it in like a Trojan horse, you set up cells. They're not in the hotels, the migrant hotels that you see. They're cells that are highly organized, they're quiet, they move in formation, they know what they're doing, and it's going to happen. And it's unfortunate that it's going to happen because, again, there's a cause and effect with everything that we do. Like I started my presentation, in the pre-planning of it, now we're operating, when you see Tom Holman, who's a good friend of mine, right, talk about how the deportation process is going to happen, it has to happen. It has to happen from the criminal aspect of it to wipe that stuff out. And those that are come in here that are looking to better their life, contribute to the American part of it, assimilate, you know, get a job, pay your taxes, start learning the language, you know, do your part. And I promise you, there's always a path if you truly believe it, you know. But for some, Seth, it's going to be extremely difficult, because imagine that the food program gets cut off, right? Your debit card no longer works. You came into this country, you don't speak the language, no one's taught you how to simulate, you've gotten no roadmap, and you basically got brought in by the Biden administration, and now you get the rug pulled out from underneath you. What's going to happen? You're going to look to feed yourself, you look to feed your family, and what's going to happen? You're going to go steal, rob, whatever else. I mean, those are the things that are going to come, and it's going to come to the streets of every major city. And the fact that they pushed them into some of these smaller rural communities, it's going to be very problematic.
You use the words absolute chaos, and unfortunately, I agree. I'm not predicting, or I don't want that to happen. I want the opposite. But if you look at all the conditions, it's, you know, like Michael Yon. I'm sure you're familiar with Michael Yon. You probably know him.
Yeah.
You know, great guy. And I remember talking to him about, you know, what does he look for, right? When you were talking about, you know, say war or pandemic or famine, which he kind of says is like the trifecta. He says, look, he goes, everyone's focused on, let's say, you know, let's use the analogy of a forest fire. He says, everyone's focused on what the spark was. Like, what was the spark that caused the fire? He goes, I don't care about the spark. He's like, I care about the conditions. He goes, I'm looking at the forest, I'm seeing that there's 10 different conditions that make it so that any single spark will ignite this whole thing. And that's the thing, is you look at America and all the conditions are there. A change in our government, you know, bringing in a new president who's not going to take, you know, lightly to bullying by the CCP or the cartels or whoever it is. He's going to be uprooting these criminals, as you've discussed. You look at the conditions of having hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of military-aged males that have come across our border. I mean, you know, we could have 20,000, you know, PRC, Chinese special forces operators just walking around wearing T-shirts, carrying backpacks and everything, waiting until they get the call. Imagine if even, you mentioned that, you know, with a small unit, you could collapse a city like LA, or, you know, one of those larger cities. Imagine what, say, 10,000 Chinese special forces can do to our entire country. You know, and of course, they know where all of our key, you know, infrastructure lies. They know where the transformers are that power the big cities that take 2 or 3 years to bring back online. So to me, it's like all the conditions are there. And while I hope and I pray for peace, I just don't know if that's in the cards.
Yeah, I mean, look, working the border for the last going on 4 years, right? When we got the call from the border sheriffs, like, hey, Steve, you guys have an excellent extreme drone team. Can you get out here? We're trying to track some of these cartels moving drugs, child trafficking, some of the stuff that's going on in some of these ranges like Cochise County, Yuma, Arizona. And so we spent many, many nights out there running ops together with them and assisting them in the apprehension of these bad actors, right? The nights, even when I was standing there, because we did a 6-part docuseries called Border Battles with Charlie Kirk, right? And him flying back and forth with us to the border to see literally what is really going on. Working with the BORTAC unit guys that are personal friends of mine, the border sheriff guys, Then we took Bobby Kennedy at the border. And I'm telling you, when you stand there at the border and you see busload after busload after busload of Chinese nationals and West Africans and all the different stands coming across, and these guys are fit. They're clean, they're polished. They look like an NBA team, right? They look serious, they're calm, they're put together, they're not disheveled, and they're not traveling with women and children, right? So when you see that night after night after night, you go, hey, this is an invasion, right? And when we posted that type of stuff, and it was not just that. I mean, there's children that were coming across that were raped, that were bleeding, right? When you see the prayer rugs throughout the desert, and it's not that I have anything against Muslim. I love the Muslim people, no issue there whatsoever. But who is coming in? When you see the cartels and you see the rape trees, right? And you see the brutality, it's a humanitarian crisis. And the fact that politicians on both sides of the aisles have continued to ignore it, and that wasn't something that immediately got addressed. It was orchestrated perfectly orchestrated for a purpose, not just, oh, we have a better life here. No, it was orchestrated for the collapse of America. We are the last front to their global takeover. And so if people think that it's going to come easy, it's not going to come easy. There's going to be a ton of resistance to this type of situation. But the preparedness aspect of it is going to be the most important part of it. It's not about fear. There's got to be a huge shift in the way that people think. You know, you have two kinds of thought processes. Those that want to stick their head in the sand and like, nah. Because it's the person that doesn't want to plan for disasters. Why? Doesn't feel good. It's like buying a burial plot, right? You could look at it that way, or you can simply look at it as information, right? You're going to die, right? There's going to be a crisis. So instead of going, oh, I'm fearful of that gun, right? It scares me. Well, it's another tool, right? Why don't you just ease into it, right? Like get comfortable with it and enjoy it and learn how to maneuver that tool, because that tool may be the difference of what saves your life and saves your wife and children. I'm not going to be that man that is going to live with the fact that my wife got attacked, raped, harmed, my child got killed because I was too afraid to get the training that I need to be a true protector that God calls us to be.
So I know that you've been on the ground in a lot of disaster zones in America over the past couple.
This is a long video. Please watch the whole video. You see where to go. Oh, Man in America. That's the name of it. It's at the bottom, I believe, though. You see, it's right. InfoWars, Man in America. Go here and watch it, please, and you'll see what's going on. We take care. We can't fear. We gotta get ready. Something might happen, disaster, whatever, chaos, all that stuff. Cause they planned it for us. They planned it for us to happen right here. So you can't get sidetracked and thinking this or thinking that. No, we all come together because it's bigger than what you think. And people was trying to explain this to you, and I was trying to explain it to you. It's bigger than what you think. If we don't come together as one, then we all done as one.